Welcome back to the Unscripted show. I'm your host, Maahir Murad. And on today's episode, we have our producer, Alex Taylor, and our writer, Asad Mapari.
Hey.
What's up?
So look, I want to quickly just quickly show the scene of the world.
Mm-hmm.
In Australia, the fires have affected 1 billion animals.
Yep.
Okay. In India, India's had the longest internet shutdown on Kashmir. They've sent their military into Kashmir. They don't have internet for 150 days. They also just recently tried putting in a CAB, which is meant to make immigration harder for Muslims. In the US and Iran tensions are rising, and there is a possibility for another world war.
Mm-hmm.
That's the world we live in. Now, I want to shift the discussion to us as high schoolers.
Mm-hmm.
What is our responsibility in this ever-changing world?
Well, I mean, we're going into this, right? This is going to be our world that we are not only do we live in, but we are going to run, right? I mean, we look up to sort of the generations that are running it now, but we are going that, and I think that's a great thing that so many people in our generation have been so, involved in politics, involved in world matters, because I mean, let's be honest, we're going those aren't, our parents' problems, those are our problems.
Yeah,
because
we're the new generation. We're going to be.
Yeah, exactly.
We can't expect the lawmakers in Congress or the older people in the world to solve these problems.
Yeah.
It's all on us now.
It may have been in the past the reasons these problems are a thing, but we are the solution.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's one thing that I really respect about high schoolers and, young adults today is just the fact that technology is definitely a huge part of it, right? We know more about the world now, but I think it's sort of a thing of yes, there are those teenagers and everything who make the World War III memes, and there are the people who aren't going to really go into politics or go into be world leaders or anything. But I think as a culture, as a generation, we are just becoming more and more involved and more aware of our surroundings. And I think because of that, we are just less ignorant. We'll make less mistakes than our previous generations.
And I feel it's extremely important.
Mm-hmm.
In today's world generation, to know what's happening.
Yeah.
You have to know. I really think it's unacceptable if you live on today's planet and you don't know what's going on, because you have access to the internet.
Yeah, internet.
You have a phone.
We have everything.
You know what's happening.
That's
you
true.
should know.
But I also think it's impressive that an entire generation of people just of young people. I think that's the huge thing is yes, other generations are very much involved in the same matters we are. But I think, when you ask your parents, hey, what were you doing at 15? None of them are going to say, oh, I was keeping up with the world, politics. All of them are going to be and
the world was very less connected without that technology.
And I'm not saying that every single person is or has to be connected into politics, because let's be real, there's a lot of people who just, don't want to take the time to learn and, actually engage in this kind of culture. But I think it's the fact is that the majority of our sort of generation has been very involved and just really everyone has different points of view, different perspectives, but I think it's the fact that we are all talking about it. We're trying to get to learn each other's perspectives,
but it's all not good and bright, and I hate to be the person to say this, but in 1900s we had the Holocaust because of Germany, because of Hitler. In 2020 there is literally a Muslim concentration camps happening in China. Millions of people are in those concentration camps. So even though we're all talking about it, we're not where we should be. We're not.
We should be.
Well, but I also think it's hard, right? Because obviously making change is hard. But I'm saying for our generations, I think we're so involved, and I don't think our world leaders and everything thought that this was ever a possibility, right? Because if you think of older generations, they look back at their teenage years not as, oh, we're going to be political activists looking for change. They're thinking back on their teenage years as, oh, go have fun, right? Go hang out with friends, go do school,
it's
all those things, right?
16-year-old, I forgot it.
I was just thinking about that.
Greta Thunberg.
She's at the age of 16. She's fighting climate change.
Time person of the year.
Person of the year. She took a boat and sailed to the U.S. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, to the U.S.
She sailed here to make a statement.
Well, and it's also just so I think we're shaking things up, right? Our generation is shaking things up, but it's also I think because of that we're starting a lot of conversations and we're starting a lot of we are enacting change. But I think it's also to the point where even though we're so involved, but we also have to understand that we're not old enough yet to be world leaders. And that's a sad reality, I think, just because we can all get so involved and really want change. But it's also a thing of we kind of are humbled by our age a little bit.
And one big takeaway we need to all get towards this is election year, right? Right. There's so much happening in the world. There's also election year. If you are going to be involved, please be educated. You have to come here and be ignorant.
Exactly.
Views,
and honestly, like I think ignorance doesn't just plague our generation; it plagues every generation.
Yeah.
But it's also such a huge thing. And you look at the tension in America right now, right? You look at you're like if you identify as Republican or if you identify as Democrat, you are diehard. You have to support every single
divided.
Yeah, you have to support every single one of those.
There's no middle
ideals.
ground.
There's no middle ground, and you'll kind of talk to most of the teenagers I talk to don't support every Republican idea, don't support every Democratic idea, and so it's sort of like a thing of like, well, they're like, you know what, I'm tired of all this arguing, this fighting, this decisiveness or divisiveness in the country, and it's sort of
some people just don't vote.
But see, all of that is rooted in ignorance, is rooted in not understanding that,
and
not
I think
listening.
Another big part of that is all this technology that is a good thing for us, so we can be more active. It's a double-edged sword because now we're getting all this information. A lot of it is misinformation. A lot of it is misrepresentations, misquotations,
fake news.
And because of that, we will be picking some quotes and that are wrong in the first place, and we'll go and argue with people. We'll say, "Oh, well, I know this quote." Well, your source is wrong.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to verify now.
And that's the thing is like, going back to what Asad just said, like the fake news thing, that is like the ultimate, like just aside from everything, that saying fake news to something is the ultimate argument. Like
it's over.
That is how you end an argument. That's not how you like achieve that's not how you have a conversation, right? If you're ever in a conversation, you're never going to say, "Oh, fake news." Like that is never once in any conversation that I've ever heard of having.
It's a thing now. It has to be.
But see, and that's the thing is like once you say something like that, it's so charged and it conveys such ignorance. And I mean, yes, there's truth to it. Yeah. But I think when people use that phrase or phrases like that in conversation, they're doing it in an argument to end the argument because they don't want to like.
It's less of a logical argument, more of a I've said this statement.
Also,
I win.
Because at that point you attack the credibility of the source. You don't attack the argument.
Yeah. Well, and I also think it's like people don't. Like everyone has such a big pride and ego now that no one will ever in an argument accept when they are wrong, right?
That's not possible.
Or accept that they are wrong, period, right? Like, and that's the thing is like, a lot of it is very kind of opinion based, but I think it's also a thing of, it's just crucial to not go into the mindset of no one can change my mind about anything ever. Yeah. And I agree that there are definitely like instances and like topics that you like. Personally, your moral arguments, there are going to be those times where you're like, look, I'm sorry, I just can't support that. They go against my morals, my values, whatever, right? But I think in like the mass majority of conversations, if you go into a discussion with someone to have an actual genuine conversation, then you're going into it open-mindedly. Like you're going into it with the mindset of change my like point of view. Right?
I may be wrong. You may be right.
Exactly.
That's my mindset.
Like change, literally present me with is a great information, great your
sourcing
side. Yeah. Like just have a conversation with me so that like I believe in like what you're saying, or if I don't believe in what you're saying, you believe in what I'm saying.
I feel like the perfect example of this is climate change.
Yeah.
99% of climate scientists believe that climate change is the
thing, right? Well, I mean, there's just proof. Like there's just evidence.
But there is factual evidence, but there are people who don't believe in it.
It's true.
Yeah, they think that a hoax by China.
Yeah.
And
see, climate change.
That's the thing.
But
who said that? Oh yeah, our president.
Yeah.
Who was that? Oh, the leader. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Commander in chief.
But I just and that's the thing is like I have such, because like in an argument, that is where you see the whole, it's a screaming match now, right? You can't have like, you see conversations are kind of becoming less and less common, and arguments are just increasing like on a daily basis.
Full of fallacies, logical fallacies.
Well, because it's all like objective, and it's all, opinion based. There's very little
and a large
like
part
factual
of this
support.
is, okay, look, there's been a bunch of studies. If your parents were Republican, you are more likely to be Republican.
Of course, but that's just how you're raised.
Their values come to you, right?
Of course.
But so do their opinions, and sometimes those opinions are factually incorrect, or they haven't been the
but you
research.
just believe it because it's your family.
Because you've been grown up, and And initially, it's not your fault that that's what you believe. But at some point, you do have to do the research. You do have to say
make your own decisions.
You gotta figure it out for yourself.
The key is, if more knowledge comes to you, you have to accept it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You can't just say with this frame of mind that I know everything I need to know. That is ignorance.
That is ignorance.
That is ignorance.
And so this is where I'm like, I have such high hopes for our generation, our like high schoolers and young adults now, because I think we're tackling issues that like most generations don't tackle until they're much older, right? Yeah. But then you also see like the reverse side of that, right? Like where you're like, okay, well, let's take a step back, right? We're tackling these issues so young. Are we deteriorating as a generation in the sense of like, are we becoming more divided? Or do we not know how to argue or have a conversation anymore? Is it sort of a thing of like, we just jump too quickly to conclusions rather than,
So there's been tons of studies on this on the cognitive field of research. It's if you believe on one side of a thing, you're more likely to research that side. Yeah. You're more likely to look for information that supports that point of view.
Course.
You won't even look at the other side to say what are they saying? Yeah. What facts are they bringing up?
Yeah.
And
that's
I feel
interesting,
like
actually. Yeah.
Today, it's like everybody here is the judge. Like everybody's judging each other. Who's arguing? It's just everybody's judging each other.
Yeah, some people it's like, he likes that political party. He must be racist.
Yeah,
and that's my thing. Like I think judgment is so huge. Not only in society, but I think specifically if you're looking at just high school, right? And take away politics, take away, all of this whole like, we got a lot of world problems that we got to figure out, but let's just focus on judgment for a second, because that's a huge thing for high schoolers specifically, right? Because, let's be real. High school, and this is something that every single person can relate to, is high school, you're like, it is all judgment, right? And like, if you're not thinking about, what others, like everyone's thinking about what is everyone thinking about me, right? Yeah. What does everyone else see in me? What are they thinking about me?
Are they going to judge me? Are they going to
judge me?
Stupid for doing this?
What are they saying about me? That kind of thing. And then what that does is that contributes. See, like, you get scared, you kind of, and that's like where insecurity kind of comes in. But I think it affects every single high schooler on a level of like, some people act out in different ways, right? Some people become very sort of timid and shy. Some people are going to contribute to the problem because it's happening. They think it's happening to them so much that they have to give in and contribute and like judge others.
That's the bandwagon effect where it's everyone else doing it. I have to jump in now.
You got to jump in. And so, I've kind of come to the realization of like, in high school itself, high school is such a difficult time. Everyone is first of all, everyone is thinking to themselves, everyone else is judging me, right? Like everyone is always like, oh my gosh, everyone's looking at me right now. Like that's sort of the mindset of just the average high schooler. And so what I found is that what kind of is the best remedy for that is when you take a step back and say, you know what? I'm not going to contribute to this problem anymore. I'm going to do better at not judging people. I'm going to do better at not saying things behind people's backs. If I have a problem with someone, I'm going to go directly up to them and I'm going to tell them the problem
really
I have
starts
with
like the individual.
Yeah.
You can't change the society. You got to change the
individual. And see, what I've noticed is that I kind of came to that realization. I started putting that into practice. And after I was like, you know what? If I stop judging other people, then like nowadays I don't even think about what other people think about me. Yeah, I'm literally into the mindset of it just doesn't bother me anymore because I know I'm not contributing to the problem. So it was sort of a two-way street, right? And of course that's not going to work for everyone, but I'm saying like if you that is an important thing of its own. Like if everyone could be a little less judgmental, because guess what? Look, we all have flaws and we're all going to mess up in high school, but like at the end of the day, we all have the same basic insecurities. We all want the same things, right? We all want, happiness. We all want good experiences. We all want good grades most of the time. We all want to, I know. But so we all have so much in common that I think by like judging each other, it's actually just it is sort of this like messed up version. Like it's this messed up fallacy that you have to judge people in high school, right? You have to look at others and tell people, like talk about people and gossip and like all these things, right? But that's not true at all. You don't have to live your life like that. You just don't.
You really don't. So I think we've talked about when you want in today's society, you have to be educated. You can't be ignorant. You should accept the other side. And now we're talking about and don't let other people judge you. So let's continue this path of what the high schooling, because okay, look, it's already a fact that the shoulders of the world are on us.
Yeah.
On this generation.
It's true.
But are we prepared? Are we going, like, we may, because look, everybody's a lion on social media, okay?
It's
you ever
true.
scroll through Twitter, everybody's voicing their opinions, everybody's arguing with each other. But in person, in reality, are we really going?
No.
Are we really the society?
Not at all.
Really?
Tell
You'd
us
say
why.
no? Okay.
Because people on Twitter, you're behind the screen. You can say whatever you want. But then some people in person, they'll just completely shut down. And if they're in a group of like a bunch of people and they have an opinion different to everyone else's, they're not going to say anything. They're just going to quiet down. It's not.
So I'd
actually say the opposite of that.
Personalities.
Well, if you have, it also depends on the personality.
Yeah.
There are a few people who have like the lion personality.
And I'd actually disagree with that. And I know it sounds like I'm just being like, our generation's the greatest generation of all time. But I'm trying to we're
Gen Z, right?
We are Gen Z, yeah. So, but you look at the people. I know. But you look at the people we've had on our show today, right? Throughout our entire first season, right?
Yeah.
And it has been such different people. You've had entrepreneurs, you've had filmmakers, you've had actresses, you've had, athletes, we've had the full scope of, I think, high schooler, really overachiever, high schoolers. Yeah. But also, these people have just been people that we found because we're like, oh, hey, we're friends with them. Yeah. And we just realized we're like, oh, you know what? They've done a lot of
they're
of stuff.
People.
They're really and you kind of make that click, right? In our very first episode, right? No one would have known that Kat has written novels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she has, right? And so I think just the fact that, we on average, in my mind or in my point of view, I see our generation as just such a overachieving goal. We are going out to accomplish things. And yes, it's not the same way that other people have in the past. And it's not all in the same formats, right? Some people have kind of go into more traditional ways. Some people go into more like entrepreneurship, success. Yeah. Some people are 100% on just social media and achieving success through that. But I think, not only are we an aware generation, but I think we literally, you see all these high schoolers, they're inspiring, but they're just kind of living their lives, right? They're not thinking of this as oh, I want to go inspire people. They're not thinking of this as oh, this is sort of, this is crazy for me to be doing this in high school. They're just going out and doing it.
That's true. And I think at a larger scale, I think just scientifically it's proven it's because that the history of the world leans towards progress. Okay. Mm-hmm. So in the long run, pessimists are going to lose, Yeah. So even though there are some high schoolers, some people who aren't at the top of their game, or who are, and even think technically right now, even though we're so into it, we don't really need to be,
Yeah.
It's not, nobody said that, oh, you're a 16-year-old, you have to be into politics, you have to be talking about the world's issues,
It's just sort of
should be
thing.
aware.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say is, our history always shows we're going to go towards progress. So I think we will be able to solve them because it's kind of interesting where it's the previous generation's problems that the new generation is trying to fix. And we all know the solutions as well.
Yeah.
The solutions are there. It's just the people. It's just
who's willing to solve it.
And
because it's going to be hard.
It's going to be hard. It's okay, some countries a lot of times have gone to war because war spurs the economy, we know it's a bad thing. We know we shouldn't go to war because of two people disagreeing.
Yeah.
But it's oh, it's good for the economy.
It is good.
Capitalism and all these other things. So even though we may know the solutions, we may not always get to them because there's bigger things at play here.
And there's also, you have to understand that not everyone thinks the same way, right? And that is sort of just, that's what it means to be human, right? Yeah. We're not all the same, and, we're not all going to see things the same way or hold the same values. And I think in today's society, first of all, I think we're way more of an accepting generation. I think today we have such a, an accepting generation. I think that we are just as a generation more accepting, people, when talking about differences, of course, there are definitely people who don't, accept people's differences and everything. But on average, I think we're far more accepting. And I think because of that, it's just such a huge thing to remember that all human beings want sort of the same thing, right? We all want love, we all want good experiences, and we all want people to share them with, right? That is just the basis, right? A lot of people want success, a lot of people want wealth, fame, fortune, all the things, right? But I think on like just what it means to be a human being, you want those core things. And I think, I honestly think that more of our generation understands that and knows that, which is why we're so accepting, right? But so I think that is a positive, light on something. Like basically, we're moving in the right direction, right? I think, and that's just my opinion. I know I'm coming across totally as like we're the greatest, in the world, but like.
So I think let's wrap this up real quick. The world has a lot of problems.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot going wrong. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of responsibility that's going to be on our shoulders.
Yeah. Right.
So I think the takeaway from this episode our goal, our unscripted show, our goal was to inspire, right? Mm-hmm. And we're going bigger from that. We're saying not only do you want to inspire, we also want to educate. Yeah. We want to say that, look, you should be active in what's happening in the world, right? You live on this planet, but don't be ignorant about it, right? Educate yourselves, be accepting of other opinions, Yeah. So that's one thing we're trying to say. The second thing we're trying to say is, stop judging people, okay?
Yeah.
We're all human. You're not a greater human. You're not a lesser human. Don't judge. And if you're being judged, try your best to overcome it, right? Don't let that fear of being judged stop you. Don't let it hold you back. Mm-hmm. So those are the main two things. And do you think there's anything else any key takeaways, something we could take away?
No, I mean, I guess just stay knowledgeable and
staying knowledgeable, right? There's an information overload, and knowing what to focus on is also important, right?
Yeah. And I've also noticed, with our podcast, we have very, like inspirational guests, like that's just who they are, right? Mm-hmm. But I think in almost every single episode without, failure, they always say, just go for it. Oh, right. Yeah. And I think I love that we've heard that message so many times, just because like it's such an important message, especially to our generation, because we are the generation that needs to go for it, right? Yeah, we just need to, and I think right now is the best time to start, because there's not we don't have like a ton of like obligations on us. So if we try something, if we fail or whatever, we're still, young, we still have time. We don't have like a ton of obligations to anything, but, I mean, honestly, go for it, 'cause this is our world and we have to live in it. So
go ahead.
Seek discomfort.
And I want to end off with like, educate yourself to be the best version of yourself, so that tomorrow can be the best future for everyone. Because it's going to be our responsibility to make that happen. Because there's a lot wrong. There's a lot of problems we have to fix in our own society, in our own cities, and in the world in general. So good luck.